Israel. I'm Officer Jeshurun in San Antonio. In today's class, it is called Lewdness, Decay, Great Want, and Famine. Lewdness leads to decay, from decay to great want, and then lastly, famine. And we want to show the connection of this because we don't want you to think when this great famine hits that, oh, it just happened. No, it's because of all this lewdness is going on. Because we Israelites broke every law in the book. I want to focus on one of these many sins which we committed, and that's lewdness and fornication, in particularly because it's heinous in the end result, which is famine. Let me get Leviticus chapter 18, and we're going to read 1 through 30.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 18 and verse 1.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. Ye shall do my judgments, and keep mine commandments, mine ordinances, to walk therein. I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am the Lord. None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him, to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord.
Which is incest. Go on.
The nakedness of thy father, or the nakedness of thy mother, shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness.
Okay.
The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or daughter of thy mother, whether she is born at home or born abroad. Even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover.
Now, all this incest, the Lord is pointing out, he has to say it in specific detail because we are actually that, I hate to say, for lack of a better word, stupid, dumb. Go on.
The nakedness of thy son's daughter, or the nakedness of thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. For theirs is thine own nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's sister. She is thy father's near kinswoman. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy mother's sister. She is thy mother's near kinswoman. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's brother. Thou shalt not approach to his wife. She is thine aunt. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness.
Now, some of you are thinking, does the Lord really have to go into this much detail? Yes, Israel, he does. Go on.
Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife. It is thy brother's nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. Neither shalt thou take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness, for they are her near kinswoman. It is wickedness.
That is threesomes. No threesomes. Go on.
Neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her, to uncover her nakedness beside the other in her lifetime.
More threesomes. See, it's going through every detail of the same subject. Because we can't leave no stone unturned. God can't do it, not for Israel, because Israel got that knack of, make an excuse. They will find every opportunity to do sin. Go on.
Thou shalt not approach unto a woman to uncover her nakedness, as long as she is put apart for her uncleanness. Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife, to defile thyself with her. And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire of Molech. Neither shalt thou profane the name of God, of thy God. I am the Lord. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination.
Now we get to homosexuality. And before that, it was talking about abortions in verse 21. Now it's homosexuality. Go on.
Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereunto. It is confusion.
And now we're talking about bestiality. You say, no, we're not doing it. We've been doing it. It's just now it's getting ready to be open. And you're going to see as the time goes by. Go on.
Defile not yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you, and the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity upon it, and the land itself vomith out her inhabitants. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourneth among you.
And see, now the Lord is saying why you got to keep these statutes and judgments. And after all this, at verse 30, we're going to get the definition of lewdness. But keep going.
For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. That the land spew not you out also when ye defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever shall commit whosoever shall commit any of these abominations, even the soul that committeth them shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore shalt thou keep mine ordinances, that ye commit not any one of these abominable customs which were committed before you, and that ye defile not yourselves therein. I am the Lord your God.
All praises. Now give me the definition of lewdness, because you got to understand what we're getting ready to talk about. Lewdness is not the actual act of fornication, but it's the behavior before it. Because I'll give you an example. Homosexuality. Nobody just jumps into homosexuality. First, it was cross-dressing, and then it became effeminate behavior. Because when God mentions in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, he says, no effeminate shall enter the kingdom of God. But then it goes into homosexual and lesbian behavior in Romans. But it started out something else in the beginning. There's steps to where it becomes full-blown. All right, give me that definition. You got that? There it is. Can you read that?
Lewdness is a noun that means vulgar, indecent, or obscene behavior or speech.
All right, read it to the end of that. It can
also refer to a sexual act that someone knows is likely be seen by others who will be offended.
All right. Then I had my own definition I looked up in a different dictionary. Behavior that is sexual in an obvious, offensive way. Behavior that is sexual. Behavior. Not the actual sex yet, but the behavior that leads up, that promotes the sex. All right. Now, I want to say this one thing. Reason why I had the reader read the entire chapter of Leviticus 18 is because we broke every single one of those laws. That's right. We did worse than we ever could. We've done worse than our fathers before us. We're at that state, but it started off keeping these laws, and we didn't just break all the laws all in one night. No, it was this law today, the next day, this law, and the next day. I'm just giving an example. It was more than just a day. It was probably a year or two. And then you broke some more laws, and then you broke some more laws. Time goes by, break some more laws. Time goes by, break some more laws. I had them read that because I wanted to emphasize that there's an entire chapter completely devoted to sexual sins. Sexual sins. Think about that. Give me Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 12. Because we've done worse now. We're at this stage.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 16 and verse 12.
Uh-huh.
And ye have done worse than your fathers. For behold, ye walk every one after the imagination of his evil heart, that they may not hearken unto me.
All right. See, we've done worse than our fathers. Give me video. Get video 1 prepped. As soon as you get it up, go ahead. Now I'll be quiet. I do that always because we want to get the message out. As soon as that video comes up, play it. Here's one instance.
John, Christina, I'm at Clark High School where Sonia Garcia worked in the office, and the mother of a student I spoke with today said she is very concerned about these allegations. A Clark High student I spoke with said he's dealt with Garcia in the past. Clark County School District Police says the investigation began in December of 2018. 51-year-old office worker Sonia Garcia is accused of gross lewdness with a student.
It's disturbing. It's really disturbing. It's sickening to my stomach.
Coco Rios has a daughter who attends Clark High School and says she can't begin to understand the office worker's thinking.
I just don't see how a grown woman needs to touch on a kid. For what? Like, you're an adult. You can go find someone your own age. Why do you feel the need to touch on our children?
Police got a warrant for Garcia's arrest on May 10th. On May 15th, she turned herself in.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. It's weird that she would do something like that.
Clark High School student Azim Reed describes Garcia as strict and says he's run into her in the halls at school.
If I was walking the hallway, I had a bathroom pass.
And the woman who was accused is 50 years old.
She could be most of them kids' grandmother.
Right, 50 years old.
Getting to class.
That's enough for that video. I want to say something. In the 1980s, when I was coming up, now I'm older, 1980s, you mostly heard men committing this when I was coming up in the 70s, 80s. And it was not as prevalent as you see it today. Now you're hearing women, and it's worse off. And the men, when the men were caught, they put them under the jail. There was no question you need to be put under the jail, then you need to be ostracized. And you see how, and there's that stipulation when they go to prison, oh, they're beat up. If you touch children, they're beat up. But women, they get a pass. Now, I'm showing you how worse it's going to get. The women are going to do worse than the men have ever done.
Mind if I say something?
Hold off. Let's get this done first. Give me Sirach, chapter 25, verse 13 and 19.
The book of Sirach, chapter 25, verse 13. Give me any plague but the plague of the heart, and any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman.
See, it's saying the wickedness of a woman is worse than the wickedness of men. In verse 19.
The book of Sirach, chapter 25, and verse 19. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman.
See that? No, some wickedness.
All wickedness.
Most wickedness.
All wickedness.
Is what?
Is but little to the wickedness of a woman.
So all my wickedness and all your wickedness is just little compared to the wickedness of a woman. Now, go ahead.
You want me to finish the scripture?
Yes, go ahead.
It says, let the portion of a sinner fall upon her.
Uh-huh.
So what I was going to say about that that video we just watched is the culture that is prevalent in our community, especially because if it's a young man and he's able to, they say, pull an older woman, it's somehow an accomplishment.
Right.
It's not viewed as a lewd act towards the woman, but let it be the other way.
And it's not seen that she's taking advantage of him.
But
actually, it is.
Yes.
In actuality, I'm glad you pointed that out, because in actuality, the sexual sins that are being done by women unto men and boys is worse because of that stipulation, that environment, that way it's seen by society. They think is, well, he got him some.
Right.
That's crazy, but he doesn't even realize he's being violated. The way men violate women is different from the way women violate men. Women do it far more stealthily, far more manipulatively.
And what women tend to do is what's called grooming. And they will see a young man that they will like, and they will groom them
to be a son husband.
Right.
That's crazy, and it's insane. And there's more damage in that than what the men violate the women. Now, both are bad, but just as we read in Sirach 25, the wickedness of a woman is greater than what men do. And I wanted to emphasize that. Now, I want to show you the progression of the lewdness, how it went from the 80s, and then from the 90s, and into the early 2000s. And we can't even play 2025. We got some videos lined up to show you the progression. These first 3 videos. This is in the 1980s. This first one. This was Nasty Girls. Now I want to keep this in mind. So hold on for a second. Hold it for a second. When this was coming up, this was scandalous. This in the 80s. Now compared to today, this would be kind of tame. But keep in mind, in the 80s, this was very scandalous. Go on now. She's talking about whoring. She ain't talking about marriage. Keep playing. She's talking about whoring. She ain't talking about getting married. She ain't talking about a lifelong relationship till death do you part. And she looks at men like they're stupid. Now, if you can, take the cursor and put it to the middle of the video and let it play. There's a part in there. It's almost there in the middle anyway. Oh, you can let it play on. Oh, hell no. See, okay, you get the point. Now they switch. Now they in their drawers. Like I said.
You cut it.
You can cut it. That's crazy. Like I said, when it came out, it was scandalous. But compared to what's going on today, there's some videos we couldn't play. You can see. We're not going to show it. We're going to tell you about it. But we can't even play because of the lyrics and what's shown on there. That's how bad the progression has gotten. You show me the next one. Let me get, is it Nasty Boy? Yeah. By Janet Jackson. Yep.
Woo! You coming with me, baby.
Now don't stop it, keep playing. This video promotes men to be lewd.
Seen all night.
Even though she's saying I don't pay attention to lewd boys, the music is bumping, her dancing and everything. Now somebody watching this now says, okay, what's wrong with this? But you don't understand, the 80s, this was sexual. This was sexual. And what it's talking about?
I remember back in the 80s, there was a huge scandal when Michael Jackson first grabbed his crotch.
Yeah.
That's right. Let me tell it. Nasty boys. I don't need anything.
All right, you got this. That's enough of this. You get the point. Last one for the 1980s. Michael Jackson. Dirty Diana. Now, it was an open secret that this video was talking about Diana Ross having some kind of fling with Michael Jackson, which their age difference was like mother and son.
Right. This is an example of grooming because Diana Ross got with him when he was in the Jackson 5. He was really young.
Like I said, it was an open secret. There's no proof that we can say that it actually happened, but we know now in 2025 how lewd and salacious things are in Hollywood. Right. With P. Diddy, no Diddy. Go ahead.
You'll never make me stay, so take your weight off of me. I know your every move, so won't you just let me be? I've been here times before, but I was too blind to see that you seduce every man. This time you won't seduce me. Just saying that's okay. Hey baby, do as you please. I have the stuff that you want. I am the thing that you need. She looked me deep in the eyes.
Now, compared to today's standards, you would say, okay, this is just, kids could watch this because you don't see no nakedness. You don't see this, but you understand, in that time, this was very salacious. This was very lewd. You were supposed to promote marriage. You were supposed to promote wholesome, good family values. This ain't no family value. This is how it started out. All right, we don't have to say it no more. You get the point. What was promoted in all this? Lewd behavior. It's the behavior, like I said, behavior that is sexual and in an obvious and offensive way. Now you're saying, well, it doesn't seem that Michael Jackson is not really offensive. It's Michael Jackson. In the 80s, that was, because for Michael to come out like that, before that, Michael was saying, everybody was saying, wow, Michael's kind of grown up now, quote unquote, because he's gotten salacious. But we're emphasizing the point. This is how it starts out. It starts out small and it grows. It grows to what now we're going to show 3 videos of the 1990s. Let's see them videos. This one, Red Light Special from TLC. Y'all remember TLC? Now it's got the dominatrix going. It's got women controlling the actions of men. You notice that? It's more out and in your face. The lewd behavior of women is being promoted now. And as time progresses, it's more the women that's doing the lewd behavior, not the men. Men are still doing it, but women are taking front row seat and lead. Now, what woman goes out and spreads her legs? Come on, y'all. Now, it's just out in the open, right? This is 1990s. But ain't no flesh showing, right? You say, well, that's the 1990s. No, it's still lewd behavior. Your mind is not trained to get away from lewd behavior. You will always want the next worst one. Enough of this. You get the point.
And real quick, officer, what a lot of people don't know is that back in the day, we had the feminist movement, and the feminist movement didn't happen all at once. It came in waves. And during the beginning of the 1990s was another wave of feminism. It was the beginning of another wave of feminism. So that's why you start seeing a lot more lewd behavior within the music and entertainment industry from women in the early 1990s because it was a resurgence of the feminist movement.
Okay. Like you said, women were taking over slowly but surely. That's what we're trying to point out. And now show that next video. This is still 1990s. I want to emphasize the point, the progression. Now you have men talking about doing something to the women. When in the 80s, it wasn't like that. No. Now they're all dressed up. They ain't showing no skin, but the lyrics is highly suggestive.
Don't you understand? I wanna be an estimate.
Right? You get the point.
I wanna make you bust.
Get the next one. Now this next one, R. Kelly. Now y'all, I don't think I even have to emphasize about R. Kelly because we've seen all the trials and the verdict of R. Kelly and whatnot, and he's serving time and all the things that were going on with R. Kelly. Let's see what one of his most famous videos promoting lewd behavior.
Let me know. But my body's telling me yes, baby. I don't wanna hurt nobody. But
He's suggesting that ain't nothing wrong in what he's doing. He's suggesting that fornication is all right, and it ain't. It's nothing wrong. It's everything wrong with fornication because it makes broken families. Ain't no families getting together. It's all now baby mamas and baby daddies. Ain't nothing wrong with bump and grind.
And the crazy thing is, knowing what we know now, his music takes another meaning because of all the allegations of him messing with minors.
Right, with minors. Right. Stop right there. Yeah, you're getting the point. You're getting the point. Now we got to go to the next decade, the 2020s. This is crazy. You're seeing the progression now. The 80s, we had not, very tame Michael Jackson, but it was salacious back then. And Janet Jackson. They my age. They old. Michael Jackson ain't even living. And Janet Jackson is old. She in her 60s. Give me the next one by Nelly. Hot in here. Remember in the 80s and the 90s, they weren't taking off their clothes. Now it's talking about take off your clothes. Right. Now it's going from just the behavior to now take your clothes off and let's get ready to do some fornication.
And as you go, I was gonna say, as you're going through the videos, you see more and more skin. The women is showing more and more skin.
Right. A progression. Get the next video. Missy Elliott. Now her lyrics is highly suggestive. The lyrics gets worse and worse with every decade. Again, showing the progression from lewd, kind of lewd, tame behavior, but it's still lewd. But that's how it starts out. Because it's deceptive that way. If it's being subtle, then you'll be more, how should I say it, more willing to go along with it if it's subtle. It's like putting a frog in a pot of water and turning on the fire very low. The frog will never jump out of there, and he will boil to death because it's subtly being turned up slowly. The temperature is going up and up and up and up until it boils him to death. That's what's happening to our society. Well, right now, it's just full-blown out of debauchery. That's the only word I can say for it now in 2025. You got that? Go ahead and play it.
EJ, please pick up your phone. I'm on the request line. This is a Missy Elliott one-time exclusive. Come on, is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. It's your primitive is why yet number. It's your primitive is why yet number. If you got a big, let me search it to find out how hard I gotta work. Yeah, it's your primitive is why yet number. It's your primitive is why yet number. I like to get to know ya so I can show ya. Put a hurtin' on ya like I told ya. Give me all your numbers so I can phone ya. Your girl acting stink, then call me over. Not on the bed, lay me on your sofa. Call before you come, I need to shave my cha-cha. You do or you don't, or you will or won't cha. Go downtown and eat it like a vulture. See my
Going
hips,
downtown,
hips on
oh,
cha. See
Jesus.
my hips,
It's
them
talking
hips
about
on cha.
straight. She's acting more manly
This the kind of beat that go
with
ra-ta-ta,
sexual,
ra-ta-ta-ta,
suggestive
ra-ta-ta-ta.
behavior.
Sex me so good, I say
Suggesting
blah, blah,
sexual
blah.
behavior.
I need a
But
glass
in a
of water.
manly
Boy, yo, boy,
sense.
it's good to know ya.
That's enough of that. That's enough of that. You getting the point.
And that was a clean version of the song.
Yeah, that was a clean version of the song. There's something worse. Now, the next video, we couldn't even put this one up because this Lick It by Kaya, that we can't even say her lyrics on this platform. No, can't. It's horrible. It's bad. It's that bad that we can't even play it now. What can I say? We're degenerate, and we're still in the early 2000s. Again, I'm emphasizing the progression from the 1980s to the 1990s to the early 2000s. And our last video, we can't even play it, but we're in 2025. Do y'all get it? Do you get the point? I hope so. I really do. Now let's go on so we can teach this class. Give me Ezekiel 23 and 20, because I want to emphasize what you saw in the 80s. This is what the women were doing.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 23 and verse 20.
Uh-huh.
For she doteth upon their paramours,
Uh-huh.
whose flesh is as the flesh of asses.
Whose flesh is as the flesh of asses. Talking about man's rod, like the rods of donkeys. This is how it was in the 80s. This is how I heard women talk about in their little circles. And I eavesdrop and hear it. Go on.
And whose issues is like the issue of horses.
All right, and they're talking about ejaculation of men, like the ejaculation of horses. There's lots of ejaculation. That's what it's in the Bible. Go on. Is that it?
That was it.
Okay. Give me and it goes, now I'm going to show you the progression. Go to Ezekiel 23 and 11. It goes from that, where you want just, women are wanting big men with big rods and lots of ejaculation. Go on.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 23 and verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And when her sister Aholibah saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love.
In what love?
In her inordinate love.
Key word, inordinate, out of order. Something that you go. What I'm going to show you, keep that in mind. I'm going to hold it off because the videos will tell it more than I can say it. Inordinate. It goes from men and women just be together to something inordinate. See, in lewdness and sin, it never stays the same, never stays stagnant. It always gets worse. Always. Because regular love between husband and wife, when you change it over to something lewd or something sinful, it will always progress to something where you have to do the next worst thing. That's insane. That's why we try to tell, repent, keep these commandments. Is that it for Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 11?
No, sir.
No, read it again just so they won't forget the thought.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 23 and verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And when her sister Aholibah saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she, and in her whoredom more than her sister in her whoredom.
Right. The women are now they're competing. You have Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom talking about, but I want to talk about, use this as a metaphor, as an allegory. The women today, I saw this through the decades. The women are competing against each other. They're not trying to get with men and have a marriage and have a family like God wants, something wholesome, something good and righteous. No, they're competing against each other how to be a better whore than the next one. That's insane, but that's what the Bible's talking about. Give me Ezekiel chapter 23. I want to emphasize verse 27 and verse 30.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 23 and verse 27.
Uh-huh.
Thus will I make thy lewdness to cease from thee,
Okay.
and thy whoredom brought from the land of Egypt, so that thou shalt not lift up thine eyes unto them, nor remember Egypt anymore.
Okay, that was verse what?
That was verse 27. You want 28 as well?
Mm-hmm. Go to 28, 29, and then verse 30.
Yes, sir. Verse 28. For thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will deliver thee into the hand of them whom thou hatest, into the hand of them from whom thy mind is alienated.
Right. Because in verse 27, the main point I wanted to get out of their lewd way. It started out the lewd way. Now pay attention. He's going to go on. When it gets to 30, I want you to listen carefully. Go on.
Verse 29. And they shall deal with thee hatefully.
Read fast.
And they shall deal with thee hatefully, and shall take away all thy labor, and shall leave thee naked and bare. And the nakedness of thy whoredoms shall be discovered.
Mm-hmm. Read fast.
Both thy lewdness and thy whoredoms.
Read 30.
I will do these things unto thee, because thou hast gone a whoring after the heathen, and because thou art polluted with their idols.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Give me, wait a minute, 23, 30. Where is that one? Ezekiel 23, 30. Imperious, whorish woman. Is it 31? Hey, say something.
Basically, what the officer's going over is a great class that needs to be taught in regards to us fixing our communities, because the lewdness and the debauchery has gone up to a level that is way past what it was during the time of our forefathers.
Right.
Right? It has spilled out into the streets. People don't care anymore about how they look, how they come out. Shoot, I've seen women walk outside with a see-through shirt. Just lewd. They just don't give a damn anymore.
All right, I found it. Ezekiel 16:30. Because remember I was showing you the progression of how the women were in the 80s, and then the 90s, they were a little bit more explicit. And then in the early 2000s, they acting more manly. There's a progression where the women are becoming more like the men. And this is scripture is bringing out just that very character. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 30.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 16 and verse 30.
Uh-huh.
How weak is thine heart, saith the Lord God, seeing thou doest all these things, the work of the imperious whorish women.
Imperious means like the word is an emperor, meaning a total ruler. Imperious whore. She wants to rule over the man. That's what you're seeing in these videos as a progression. It went from they just being a whore first in the 80s, and then they've gotten more dominant over the men, and then now in the early 2000s, they totally dominating the men. The men just willingly being a simp and doing whatever sexual sins they want the woman to do, the way she wants it and when she wants to have it. Totally like men, controlling everything. Imperious, whorish woman. Let me show you something. Give me the video number 2. The truth about female teachers. In the 70s and the 80s, I'm going to say this before he plays it. When in the 70s and the 80s, men were being convicted of lewd acts with children or inordinate affection, the men were immediately arrested and thrown in prison. There was no question about you. If a man was accused of that, it is almost certain he's guilty. No matter, even if he ain't, because there's a lot of innocent men in prison too because of accusations. But the point I want to emphasize is when men were accused, they were immediately arrested. There was no question of whether or not he did it or not. He's a man, damn it. You're wrong. Men are wrong and women are right. But now women are doing this. Women are violating young boys. And now there's a question of whether or not she's guilty. That's insane. Play that video.
Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty. Now it seems like we're hearing about a female teacher being arrested every other week.
Another teacher,
every
a
other
person
week,
who holds a position of authority, accused of using that power to take advantage of a teenager.
It's tough when you want to trust someone. I know as a parent, you want to trust the people in your community, you want to trust the caregivers. Unfortunately, those are often the people who abuse that trust.
Acts, she admits, were done using duress for her own pleasure.
Is that true?
Yes.
For decades, society has pushed one lie that women, mothers, teachers, caretakers are the best and safest bet for raising children. But now, the truth is brutal and the evidence is undeniable.
Yeah, I think my reaction is I'm glad to see we're seeing more and more of these cases, and I don't think that the cases are happening any more frequently. I just think there's a lot more reporting that's going on. So,
right?
Particularly in cases of the female adult and the male minor, historically we haven't seen a lot of this reporting. So I'm glad to see it get the attention that it's getting.
It's official. Women can no longer be trusted as the default caretakers of children. The data is clear. The consequences are real. But what do you hear from feminists and mainstream media?
That women are the best caretakers. That women are the best mothers.
There is no
that care for children more. And we know by the scriptures, a woman has to be taught how to love the children, how to love their husband.
Why? Because exposing this truth would shatter the very foundation of the women are natural caregivers myth. But before we talk about the female teachers preying on young boys in schools, we need to start with the first female teacher in a child's life, his mother.
Each year, 41% of mothers have children without being married. However, the majority of children of single moms experience some level of dad deprivation. So the question is, that means deprivation of what? Of postponed gratification, of empathy, social skills, motivation, and identity, but also an increase in depression, suicide, and addiction to porn, alcohol, drugs, video games. Dad-deprived boys are boys who hurt, and dad-deprived boys hurt us. They are much more likely to commit crimes. They're much more likely to deal drugs, bully, and mass shootings, especially in schools, are almost always by dad-deprived boys.
Because the women teach them to be like women. They're emotional as hell. So they act on emotion and not in spirit, as thus saith the Lord, as it is written.
If that were true, why are boys raised by single mothers at the bottom of every negative statistic? Why do so many single mothers on TikTok break down saying they can't control their sons? The truth? Boys need fathers. Mothers alone, no matter how loving, cannot replace masculine leadership. And the proof is everywhere. So if the first female teacher, the mother, is already failing, what do you think happens when women dominate the education system?
Right.
Female teachers accused of using their jobs to target their students who are just kids for sex. It's happening a lot these days. In Texas, Jaden Charles, a pregnant mother of 4, was arrested in the past week, accused of having sex with multiple students.
This is
Margaret
recent.
Claire Burris was charged last month with having an improper relationship with a student after police said they found inappropriate text messages on her phone.
This
now
is
it
recent.
seems like we're hearing about a female teacher being arrested every other week somewhere around the country for having sex with a student.
Every single week.
Damn. You hear that? Every single week. Are we at 410? You hear that? Every single week. 2025, y'all. This is how we progress now. We're at where it's happening every single week with women violating boys. But you don't hear that much about it. And then they get a slap on the wrist, or sometimes they'll get arrested. I came up in the era where if men got accused, whether they're guilty or not, and I say the not part because there's a lot of men, I'm going to emphasize this, there's a lot of men in prison totally innocent. But because they were accused of touching or somewhat has some lewd behavior to a girl, he was automatically guilty. Case closed, just throw the book at him. That's crazy. Give me that next video. There's a double standard with the women and the men. And that's what we want to show you. Just like the Bible says, give me any wickedness, but the wickedness of a woman.
New at 5 o'clock, a 31-year-old Fountain woman who police say had sexually assaulted a 13-year-old boy is avoiding prison time.
Prosecutors offered her a plea deal even after she gave birth to a baby conceived with the teen. KRDO News Channel 13 Spencer Soysher joins us live from the El Paso County Courthouse where that plea deal was taken. And Spencer, the mother of that boy, is furious about the deal.
Bart and Heather, Andrea Serrano pleaded guilty to an amended charge of incest, though the 13-year-old boy's mother says that they have absolutely no relation. She said she objected to this plea deal when the DA's office showed it to her. Still, it didn't matter, and it appears Serrano is going to avoid prison time.
You hear this? Serrano's going to avoid prison time.
There should be no, incest charge being allowed.
Originally charged with sexual assault on a child, Andrea Serrano is
Northern
avoiding
Kingdom.
prison time. She struck a deal pleading guilty to incest only. The boy's mother is upset with that deal because police say Serrano gave birth to a child she conceived with the 13-year-old.
Had my son have been a little girl and this had been a 31-year-old man, they would be seeking incarceration.
Immediately.
They are not. And I don't think that they realize that, boy or girl, this is going to follow him for the rest of his life.
KRDO is concealing the identity of the boy's mother because her son is a victim of a sex crime. In May of last year, Fountain police claimed Serrano admitted to them she was drunk when she had sex with the 13-year-old boy in her car and then was carrying his child.
She knew what she was doing. What was the boy doing in her car?
She was not okay with this plea deal.
It's not necessary.
Right. Is that a minute 35? Now, I want to emphasize the amount of sexual damage that's being done to boys is never discussed. Because I remember that video, and I remember the caregiver, the caretaker in the social services was saying, the mother was saying to that caregiver, this boy is going through psychological damage because he's realizing at 13 years old that he has to be a father. Does a 13-year-old boy can't even conceive being a father? That's like putting a mountain on top of a boy's shoulders. He can't bear that. He just reached puberty. Are you kidding me? But nobody talks about the amount of damage that is being done sexually to boys. And now this next video is showing you how much of the boys are black boys and how much damage black boys are doing. And I'm going to say one more thing because this next video we're going to go into in depth. Black boys, because there's other videos that shows you that this doctor, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, He's a PhD professor at the University of Berkeley, California, and he teaches black masculinity studies, right? Because he had to, because there was no other narrative, no other language that was addressing the things that black men and boys were going through. Right. Go on.
Throughout the bitter winter during rain and snow, John Vaughn
the first
has
one
alternated between sleeping in a tent
from
or a
6:20
camper
to
van outside former
9:45.
University
That's
of Michigan
6:20.
President Mark Solisell's house. A former University of Michigan and NFL football player, Vaughn is one of more than 1,000 people, mostly men, who say they were abused by athletics doctor Robert Anderson, who worked for the university from 1966 to 2003, treating students across sports, including football, track, and wrestling. Anderson, who died in 2008, died in 2008, subjected students, 90% of whom were men, to sexually abusive conduct and invasive exams, including unnecessary genital and rectal examinations. According to a 2021.
I want to emphasize this as you're listening to these accounts, because there's 5 timestamps. And there's another video by Dr. T. Hassan, and he states with all the proof, little boys, black boys specifically, are raped more than girls. You know how women and girls say women and girls are more sexually assaulted than anything? No, that's not what the stats say. Black boys are raped more and assaulted. Black boys. But do you hear it, officer? Do you ever hear that on the news? Black boys are sexually assaulted more than girls and women?
I've never heard it. They sweep that thing
Me
right
neither.
under the rug.
Me neither. But hey, I'm glad I came across him through Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels started off listening to him, and that's why Kevin Samuels got his platform and started advocating for men and boys. Through all the stuff that he was hearing Dr. T. Hassan Johnson bringing out with documentation, with the facts, data, statistics. That's what I love about when the men come forward, because they bring facts, something you cannot argue with. Play that video.
Independent report commissioned by the university. Right? Many of Anderson's victims were black, and survivors say this has played a part in why the abuse was allowed to continue for decades. 1966 to 2003. And it's interesting that in that very time period, we've seen the rise of just this language around sexual vulnerability. And if this is happening at one university, I wonder how many other spaces it's happening in.
Think
Not
about
just
that.
universities
Multiply
and
by the number of
sports
universities.
programs, but how many other spaces in general is this happening in? Spaces that, people have not talked about.
So who are the victims?
And this is the same time period where we saw
Israelite
policy
men
on sexual assault. We saw policy directed and targeted at women. We've even seen gender neutral policy at the federal level in regard to sexual vulnerability. And yet, in terms of actual application, even in my classes, hell, even when I was taking classes as a student, the prevailing assumption was that this was not something that men experienced. Except in, extreme situations like you were in prison or something of that nature. And that was always dealt with jokingly. That was humorous to people.
Like it's something funny.
But the actual experience of it, right? And in this instance, we see it happening from 1966 to 2003. Now, we know this is something that definitely occurred during slavery on plantations. But I've not had one class. He's talking about. Not one class. I was I was in college from 1992 to 2007, I believe it was. 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. Whenever I finished my dissertation, it's a blur at this point. But that entire time, I never had one class that even acknowledged male sexual vulnerability.
Stop.
And when I actually brought...
Not one class. When you go in that type of field where it's talking about sexual crimes and whatnot, and sexual... mental diseases and whatnot, it's all centered around what the woman experiences. He said he's a PhD. He didn't have not one class that addressed the men being violated or abused or the damage that men were going through. and it's obvious. He's going to describe it in detail.
And a lot of times when that happens, it perpetuates a cycle, because once those men grow up,
violent,
they either get violent, or they become homosexual, or they become predators of themselves.
Right.
And they prey on younger
the women
men.
started all of this. That's what I was trying to point out, and that's why I got Dr. T. Hassan's platform videos. Did they go up to timestamp? Not, huh? Okay, play it out.
Brought it up. I actually asked one professor about whether or not men experienced rape on plantations during slavery. The professor asked me, why would you even ask that question? Right? So this is something that is fairly pervasive throughout history, especially when it comes to Black men. And it's blowing my mind that it's finally starting to come out a little bit more, but there's still resistance. And the resistance isn't people coming forward to say it didn't happen. It's more so people just ignoring it altogether.
Like it's something funny.
Anyway, so to deal with, 90% of students under the...
At 9:45. See, and I want to emphasize, he mentioned about how buck breaking was happening in the time of slavery. White men were doing it to Black men to break them down and break their fight in them. But now in today's time, it's women, our sisters. Yeah, men be violating men, but what we're seeing is women violating the men. Women. It's just done differently. Give me that next timestamp, 1920 to 22 minutes.
Thank you.
This is where men are told to tough it out.
Never reached the 10% goal targeted by the administrators in the early 70s. Yeah, absolutely. They never reached the 10% goal, but the question should be, what percentage of those Black students were athletes? Kind of lets you know something about the campus's priority system there. But let's continue. From the 1980s until 1996, there was a 10% increase in African-American student enrollment. However, efforts to increase African-American enrollment to reflect the Michigan State's 14% Black population have been unsuccessful, according to the university. Vaughn said it took years for him to even recognize what happened to him as abuse, and that in communities of color, for men to even discuss their abuse is seen as weakness.
Vaughn was the
in
Black
those communities, you're forced to be tough and strong.
that was violated.
We've been fighting to have a voice, just typically in this country for over 400
because
years.
there's
We're
no
constantly
dialogue about this,
been marginalized
or even a
dehumanized in
class.
so many ways.
Black
so I really
men
think those two factors create
they're
this
lost,
perfect storm.
they're confused.
Now, what he said,
and Black women
ago,
wonder why
when
we
he
can't
talked
get
about
in relationships, because you've
having to
done so much
recognize
damage, Black
happened to
women. You
him.
can't
Went through
even.
the same
The
thing.
men don't have a clue what's going on in
I didn't
their own
always
head.
process what happened to me as any particular form of abuse or attack or even my own sexual vulnerability. There were two. I had two different people. One before I was 3, or right around 3.
Now hold it
another
here.
one before
Pause
I
here.
was 9.
This is where Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. See, the reason why he can get through to him, because he was violated by 2 female family members himself. Once he's gonna say at 3 years old. Now this is a big man, because I saw his son and I saw how his son grew up. I started watching him years ago. His son is in college now. His son is 6'7". He's like 6'11". He's huge. And this is why these female family members prey on big men. Because what remember we read in Ezekiel 23:20? They want the flesh of
donkeys.
Asses. They want men with big rods and the ejaculation of horses. But you never hear this. It's in the Bible though, and that's why we're reading it to you. And I'm showing you all this lewdness and sexual sins. Ones who are suffering the most are men and boys. The most. Because it's never talked about and it's never brought out. I'm going to bring it out. I know this is the first time you hear it, and I'm glad I'm bringing it out to you. You're going to hear the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Play that.
The second one happened multiple times, but I never processed it. I literally sat in a class dealing Black feminism, dealing with black feminism. And when they started to talk about sexual vulnerability, I was reading through the materials and I'm listening to the discussions. And of course, there's a lot of shaming going on because, you had the women in the class looking at the men, wagging their fingers. And, you guys are all patriarchs.
Saying men are bad. Men are bad. Women are good.
Overlook the abuse of men. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. I've experienced this and this and this and this. Wait a minute, I experienced these things.
Wait, did
he say, took me like another year before I fully could process.
Back it up. I wanted to get to that point. It started where he was saying he was once violated when he was 3, and then another right before he turned 9. Right there. See it.
Wait a minute.
Back it up some more.
This.
Oh yeah. You're right. You was right. I experienced this.
Wait a minute. I've experienced this and this and this and this. Wait a minute, I experienced these things. It still took me like another year before I fully could process what had happened. And when I think back to those classes where you had men being finger wagged to about their patriarchy and about their abusive natures, and the discussion was pretty much, this notion that men were just born this way, right? I really started to wonder how many of those men who were being finger wagged to, had the same experiences.
Was that it at 22? So basically in this time clip, men are told, just tough it out. You're bad, women are good, and it's a one-way conversation. Women are violated, men are the violators, and men are not, we don't need to consider if anything was ever done to men. That was the general consensus.
And like I said before, whenever a man is assaulted, it's not looked at it as something negative. It's always looked at as something, damn, bro, you got lucky, damn, bro, damn.
And they give you a pat on the back.
Yeah, hey, good job, bro. Hey, you pulled a baddie.
But you're going to find out they're damaged. And he's going to give you examples. Give me that next time stamp of 29 minutes to 31 minutes. 29 minutes to 31 minutes.
Larry Nassar told CNN that in her work supporting victims of sexual abuse, she has learned that most men, no matter what, if they've been assaulted, they won't report based on more shame. See, and I've been saying this for years, because that's become a comfortable deflection that people use. Men are too macho, right? Men are too afraid to be publicly outed.
No,
it's a very comfortable go-to line. It's really a kick in the nuts. What it basically says is, yeah, men are victims, but they're too macho to come forward. Therefore, they kind of get what they deserve. They kind of, look, at the same time, we can also talk about the ways that we've socialized society to even think about sexual violence or sexual vulnerability. You don't have Lifetime movies on boys being violated.
Right. Stop.
We don't have movies that
we don't have Lifetime movies where it's showing little black boys being violated. It's always the girl or a woman. Always. You never see, and the stats say black boys are violated more than black girls. That's what the facts say. That's what he's bringing out. That's what he researched in his PhD documentaries. Go on.
That show that, especially when they're violated by women. You may get an instance where something is mentioned about someone being violated by an uncle or a male of some sort. And again, most of it is framed in prison, if it's discussed at all. But there is no visual imaginary in place for boys and men violated by women and girls. There's no framework for it. There's a very little one for those who are violated by other men. And we pathologize the men that have violated them in casual conversation, but we completely ignore the ways in which those who've been violated by women and girls experiences. And this is not about demonizing women and girls. It's just about making sense of what isn't discussed. Right?
How many videos have you seen
making sense of what isn't
female correction officers violating men?
Boys and men.
Sure, I've heard it.
Because we haven't socialized society to see the vulnerability of boys and men.
They end up getting pregnant by them and all.
Relates to women. It doesn't exist for most people.
And the crazy thing is,
Doesn't exist.
I was reading the article that he had in the background. It was talking about a dude named NASCAR or something like that, right? And it says the man got a 60-year federal sentence and a 40 to 175-year state sentence. So after he's done with federal sentence, he got to go serve state, right? After the 60 years, if he even lives that long, right? And that was for child sexual abuse and child pornography charges. But we just saw in a video of a woman. She abused a child, and she's pregnant by that child, 13-year-old, and she has 0 prison time.
0. Letting you know the wickedness of a woman is worse than the wickedness, because you got women judges that okay this. You got simp male judges that follow after the skirt of women, and they will okay this. This is how our society in the United States of Babylon the Great has degenerated the children of Israel. Because I'm showing you the main, now all races are affected, but the main ones that are affected the most, when you look at the research, are blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians. Always. Give me that next timestamp. It's the same video. We're still on this. Because he goes into, like I said, he goes into detail. 32 minutes and 25 seconds to 35:30.
Associated with black men.
Got it.
When you think about, for example, teenage boys, particularly teenage black boys, who may be physically threatening. And we know, according to the data, as young as 4 years old, black boys are seen to be older than they actually are. So imagine by the time you get to 14, 15, 16 years old, you're over 6 feet tall. You're over 200 pounds, right? And the perception of you as being fearful, being a cause of others' discomfort and fear. Not only is there no empathy for you, there's also no consideration as to how that young man may be impacted. For example, if he is one that speaks out in class and interrupts learning, if he is one that's threatening physically to other students or to whomever else is in the room, we don't have a framework for some of the things that may be impacting him.
Right, because he's not doing
back
it just
when I was working in grad school, I was doing my master's at Temple, and I worked at a program in Philadelphia, and I talked about this a few times on my show. My job was to teach a course to 14 to 16-year-old boys who were court-ordered to get their GEDs in my class. And some of those young men were my size.
Remember, he's big.
You know what I'm saying? And I used to lift with the football players, so I was at my biggest in terms of muscle mass.
He's on college professional football
and
players.
Those were the ones that were kicked out of every school possible. Nobody had actually sat down and asked them what they'd experienced. Now, first of all, they were definitely hostile when I got in there. By the time I left, they were crying.
You hear that? Stop. Pause. You hear that? See, any other time society looks at black men that act out and whatnot, they say, oh, just get them out of here, put them in some kind of learning deficiency class and whatnot. They never ask one time, why is he acting this way? It never comes up.
Especially when it comes to our black children, it doesn't come up that way. It's just a disciplinary action that's taken.
They just say he's bad.
Right.
They don't ever say... He's gonna bring it out. But every last one of them, they left crying.
But the crazy thing is, all the other nations, when that happens, what they say, oh, he needs counsel, he needs therapy. We need to get to the root of what's causing these behaviors. Not with us.
Right.
It's just inherent. They think it's just inherent in us.
Right. That we're just bad. Right. No, like I said, they left crying. You want to know why? Because when a man is brave enough to tell his story that he was violated, that reaches out, and he overcame. That testimony reaches out to other men, and they can finally open up. Because before, these men, they feel like they're going to be laughed at, they're going to be shamed, they're going to be ridiculed, they're going to be kicked to the curb. They tell what's going on with them. I've been violated by a woman. And anybody hearing that in today's wicked-ass society, they'll laugh you to shame. They'll laugh you to scorn, as the Bible says you should never do. Don't laugh a man to scorn. Why? Because it will break that person. It will kill his spirit. He will become a serial killer, if not worse. But he could reach them because he was violent, but he overcame. And because he overcame, he can reach them a hell of a lot faster, to the point where every man that he had to deal with, he's dealing with black men now, they left crying. And he told you, remember, they were violent. They were, rough. You couldn't approach them. But what he came to them like Jesus, and it made them open up, and they were left crying. That's what's going on. You can go on.
Special. It was just because once they reach out and connect with somebody, when you got to leave, it's difficult because they have a hard time trusting. But the other side to it is when I got them to talk about the things that impacted them the most, what they talked about was being sexually violated and how there wasn't a larger scale. I mean, this is 1996, 1997. There weren't any movies for this. Hell, Antoine Fisher hadn't even come out. There was no framework. Is that right? Is it Antoine Fisher? Sometimes I get the last name mixed up. But anyway, there was no framework for this. I said this before. One of them went to the police station to try and report being violated by an older woman. They laughed him out of the station.
You hear that?
You should be happy you got some. Some of those boys were traumatized.
Hey, that's exactly what we was talking about. How
not know how to
when it happened, when young men are assaulted, it is praise. They're like, damn, you should be happy you got some. What's wrong with you?
That's not what's going on in his head, though. He's been destroyed.
Right.
That's not what's going on, and people don't understand that. And then when he turns out violent or sick, when the sickness shows itself and manifests itself, you wonder why he's acting that way. You're hearing the proof from a doctorate at the University of California, Berkeley, very well accredited professor, PhD in Black masculinity studies, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. That's where you're hearing it from. And he's got the proof to back it up. Did we finish out that clip? 32:25 to 35:30? Did we? We did? Okay. And one last timestamp. 37:45 to 39:05. 37:45 to 39:05.
Can function as serial killers, and she showed in some instances women who have been in position
Back it up a few
to
seconds.
kill
Back it up.
dozens.
Just a few seconds. Yep.
It was something that I hadn't thought about recently. And what she talked about were the ways in which women can function as serial killers, and she showed in some instances women who have been in positions
Back it
to
up.
kill
Because he's talking about this
if
one
not
woman.
hundreds of people.
Did research.
But there's a
Back
difference
it up
in
some
how
more.
they present.
Back it up some more.
Right?
Back it up. Did you back it up? Don't put it on the video. You don't gotta show me. Back it up. Put it on the video. All right. Back it up. Okay.
I'm probably going to do my own video on it, but there's a woman out here on YouTube who actually is an advocate for men. This is a Caucasian woman, from what I can tell. She's a pretty strong advocate. She's pretty consistent. And she actually showed a video dealing with, she was talking about serial killers. And I'm going to do a video talking about this. And I'm going to, play a clip of hers because it was not something I hadn't thought about before, but it was something that I hadn't thought about recently. And what she talked about were the ways in which women can function as serial killers. And she showed in some instances women who have been in positions to kill dozens, if not hundreds of people.
Damn.
But there's a difference in how
you don't
they
recognize
present,
it.
right?
You see
They're
the bodies,
but
you think it's something else, an
scaling
accident.
in from the skylight and attacking you in bed with a knife. It's a different presentation. See, we haven't learned to kind of gender based on the data how men and women violate more. Now we're starting to do that with sexual violence, and we're starting to notice tropes. This is why you have Made to Penetrate. We're starting to see.
I want to make sure it's plainly understood what he's saying, because he's very intelligent and he's using very high vernacular. He's saying in plain layman terms, the way serial killers, men and women serial killers, operate. You know how men serial killers operate. You don't know how women serial killers operate. You see bodies, you'll hear about people dying, and you'll think it's an accident, or it just happened in the hospital, or it happened at the monastery, at the church and whatnot, under some nun or whatnot. No, they were serial killers, and it's been happening right in front of your eyes, but you think it's an accident or some bad, terrible thing went wrong, but not actual serial killing. That's what he's saying. Women kill differently.
Right. They say poison is a woman's tool for killing.
Silent but deadly.
Right. A lot of times men use guns, knives, their hands, hammers. It's
easily seen, easily to convict.
It's really bloody. It's really, really violent, and the evidence is everywhere. But women are subtle.
Remember that movie, How to Get Away with Murder?
Mm-hmm.
That's how women operate.
They're subtle.
How to Get Away with Murder.
A lot of times women will poison somebody, and the coroner will diagnose it as like a heart attack or something natural that happened. It's not pointed towards a murder. The death is not pointed towards a murder.
Right.
So women go a long time.
Not privily.
Right. Women go a long time not getting caught.
It'll be in
Nobody's
front of your
even
face,
looking
but
at
you
it.
won't think what you think it is. All right, you found that? Oh, no, go ahead and play it. Play it till, it gets to the end of where that timestamp is. The end time is 39:05.
See that there are overarching narratives in play for different groups in terms of how they violate or commit sexual violence against others, right? We haven't gendered this yet. And even when we talk about serial killers, we haven't done it. But she started to talk about, instead of these random serial killers running around kidnapping people and torturing them in basements, she started talking about nurses.
Nurses.
Right? Childcare providers.
Childcare providers, serial
People
killers.
who are in positions to be around hundreds of folks and not be considered a threat. And yet people's lives pass through their hands on a daily basis. Right? Now I'm going to get to that because I think it's
That's it?
And
All right.
That's crazy. I've read plenty of articles of like female nurses that these are the ones. Yeah, these are the ones who get caught. But imagine how many ones who didn't. Yeah.
Caught. And you hear about the bodies, you hear about people dying, but you think, well, they just died and it was their time.
No,
they were killed.
They were being poisoned. They were being killed in the hospitals by female nurses.
That's how sick these women are today. Remember, this video is 3 years old. We're going to go on. What does all this lewdness lead to? Give me Tobit 4:13.
The book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 13.
Uh-huh.
Now therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thine heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, in not taking a wife of them, for in pride is destruction, and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay, and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine.
So in lewdness is decay. So it goes from lewdness to decay. We're going becoming, remember that progression, we became lewd in the 1980s, and then it was decay. We become degenerate. From decay, you're going to start to see great want, and from great want, global famine. That's the progression. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. That's what the scriptures is bringing out. Give me Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23. Because think about decay. What lewdness, everybody's trying to get into sex and whatnot, and I'm going to try to, what's happening? Why does it go to decay? Well, it's going to show you here in Proverbs 14:23. Read that.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 23. In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips
and all that talking
tendeth only in penury.
Penury, meaning gross poverty, meaning extreme poverty. That's what penury is. It says, read that part, the last part, talk of the lips.
But
come on.
The talk of the lips tendeth only to penury.
The talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. What talk? The talk of, what is everybody talking about? From when going from lewdness to decay. What is everybody trying to do? They trying to, you ever heard that saying that trying to talk your way to your pants?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going, that's the talk it's talking about. They're talking way to your pants. But in the end, all that talk is not trying to build anything or be prosperous or anything. It's trying to get pleasure. Seeking pleasure only leads to penury, only leads to poverty. That's all it meant. Decay. Lewdness leading to decay. That's what Proverbs 14:23 is saying. Now, from that decay, give me Jeremiah 2:21 and 22.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2 and verse 21. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. Now then art thou turned into a degenerate plant.
That's where we're at, decay.
Of a strange vine unto me. For though thou wash thee with nitre.
All we see is ratchet now. You look at any IUIC radio station now and you see what the subject matter, we see ratchetness of our people. Decay. That's what we're coming to. To understand want now, great want, we must ask what the Bible says about what we want. Let me get that in Sirach 39. I'm going to get 3 scriptures about want. I'm going to read this fast. I got to hurry this up.
The book of Sirach, chapter 39 and verse 26. The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, wheat,
flour of wheat,
honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing.
Go on.
All these things are for good to the godly. So to the sinner they are turned into evil.
Right. Water, fire, iron, salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, oil, and clothing. These are just things you need around the house. You need all groceries. You need tools. You need furniture, stuff to survive, to just live. Give me the next one. Sirach 29, verses 21, 22, and 23.
The book of Sirach, chapter 29, verse 21.
Uh-huh.
The chief things in life is water and bread and clothing and an house to cover shame. Better is the life of a poor man in the mean cottage than delicate fare in another man's house.
Right. The chief things, water, bread, and clothing, and a house to cover shame. Just stuff you just need to live, to survive, to just go on in life. Give me Deuteronomy 28 and 47.
You want verse 23?
Yeah, go ahead.
But be it little or much, hold thee contented, that thou hear not the reproach of thy house.
But in little or much, hold thee contented, that thou hear not the reproach of thy house. Right. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 47. Just things you need to live. That's all we got. God understands your wants. That's what I'm trying to point out. That's what I want to emphasize. But when it says, when it goes from go from lewdness to decay, we're degenerate, then decay to great want. You're not gonna have these things. Why? Because remember all that talk? It only leads to poverty. Mm-hmm. Now it's gonna get to great want. Not just want, but great want. These things are gonna God's gonna take it away. Deuteronomy 28, 47.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 47.
Because of our sins, what's gonna happen?
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart.
Keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments and ordinances, go on.
For the abundance of all things.
Uh-huh.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee.
Which we're doing today.
In hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he hath destroyed thee.
In the want of all things. Got it. All right. Give me video number 5. I'm going to show these next 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 videos. 4 videos showing you great want. This is what's happening. These are recent. These are happening today. We're in the part of great want. We saw degenerate. We saw the ratchetness for the past couple of years. Now we're in great want. And after that, the famine hasn't even hit yet. It's starting, but it hasn't hit yet. We're in the part of the great want. Play that.
You guys are working, you're trying, you just can't afford a place to live.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, and we know we're not alone.
He works.
I kind of kept an eye on what's going on near Anaheim Stadium. There, I think
He's
they
not
maybe tallied
unemployed.
up
He
about
works.
400 people that were in tents out there. They also did a study that said about 40 to 50% of those people had jobs. So that means that they were coming out of a tent, which we have done before.
You see in homeless places and on tents, they're working.
I did that. This is not my first time.
And
in
people
fact,
don't
I did
realize
that 6 years ago. I
This
think
is
I was
what's
working at a
happening
hotel
right
in
now.
downtown, and I had a tent in my grandmother's backyard. That was the best I could do at that time. Wow. It's an upward climb, but we do just simply want affordable housing.
He's not lazy.
Fancy, just
he is not
what everybody
lazy.
else wants.
People think, well, they're just lazy, they're on drugs, something like that. No, that's not what's happening now. God told you in Deuteronomy 28:47, you're not keeping my commandments. You're going to be working and you still have great want. That's what's happening right now. Okay, next video, video 6. This is what I want to show. This video 6 is happening in Germany. I want you to see the famine is going to be global. It ain't going to just happen in the United States of Babylon the Great. No. It's going to be everywhere. Play that. Does it have a timestamp on it? All right, that means play the whole thing because it's short.
Despite having a job, that's the life of Attila Kokash. He's a gardener without a home.
Uh-huh.
Denny Wagner is a cook and also unhoused. He sleeps in a hut without running water or electricity.
Living on the streets is more stressful than having a job.
Thousands in Germany share their fate. Despite working, they can't find a place to live. Can they get off the streets?
They're working.
You can just put your stuff down there.
Remember, whatever happened in the United States is affecting all these other countries. They're working. Is that the end of it? I think it is. Is it? Oh, shoot, no. I didn't, okay, that was all I needed from there. I just wanted to make the point. It's not just happening in the United States of Babylon the Great, y'all. Video 7. Now I'm going to show you people with good jobs, good paying jobs, but they still ain't got a house. Still. Y'all, because why? What we've been seeing, inflation running amok to the point where even people with a good paying job ain't got a place to stay.
It's the new face of homelessness in America. Folks who are working full-time but with nowhere to live. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, nearly 19,000 people enter homelessness for the first time each week. Many of them, up to half, according to some studies, have a job. In 2022, Knoxville, Tennessee saw the largest rent growth of any metro area nationwide. While the spike is slowing down, more than half of renters are spending 30% or more of their income on housing.
This is going to 3 minutes and 35
For others,
seconds.
affording a house or apartment is simply no longer possible. In the first of our two-part series, our correspondent Jessica Gomez travels to Knoxville to talk to those affected.
Here's an airport order. It's paying $23.
Quenisha Tweedy starting her day as an online delivery driver in Knoxville, Tennessee. Switching between apps, she clocks in 7 days a week.
Turn right onto Muddy Creek Road.
There's a break to pick up her kids from school.
She's grossly overweight. She has a lot of kids.
And homework,
no
usually
father.
at the local library.
So she's sexually active, lewdness.
Then, back on the road.
Fornication.
Tweedy's kids, 5, 9, and 14. Her oldest with special needs.
Lewdness to Decay
to deliver.
Great one.
You can play your game. They like the fact that they can come and help me with orders. They just don't want to be in the car all day.
It wasn't always this way.
Before that, I was a district manager
she has
at
a
a
lust
newspaper
for food.
But But when the company downsized, she lost her job and was evicted from her Georgia apartment, moving here with promises of more delivery work until she can find a new job.
You got both cases of water? I kind of think I failed.
Still working.
Honestly, I understand that it's the economy, but it's like, you know, I was trying to save, and it seemed like every time I would save, something would come up.
But like God said, from lewdness to decay to great want, and then global worldwide famine.
To sleep in their car.
It's about to get worse.
They're home for 4 months.
That's why we gotta be out there. We gotta teach these people. It's about to get worse.
Never.
And the crazy thing is, when you're a district manager, you're highly qualified. You should be able to get another job.
But when God, you can't get around God's curse.
Or unable to find affordable housing, as prices here have
no matter how good the
skyrocketed.
job.
The average rent increasing more than 50% over the past 4 years.
We're talking about people who work at gas stations, warehouses, retail locations.
Erin Reed, the executive director of the Office of Housing Stability.
It's not a Knoxville problem, but it's an America problem. Since the downturn in 2008, we've been underbuilding, and we're also on the receiving end of this migration trend where people with comparatively high incomes are moving from large cities into small and mid-sized towns, and that's having an upward effect on our housing costs.
The county's main shelter, Knox Area Rescue Ministries, over capacity by November.
Everybody's downsizing.
An expanded area for women
very
and children
well
full with a waiting list.
Your houses.
About 150 of
That way
those
you don't
staying
have a
here
house.
are employed.
We recently housed a lady with a master's degree in social work who was staying here. And so folks that are highly skilled, have backgrounds, work histories, not being able to afford current rent prices.
You see if that coffee's working, see if we need to make some more coffee.
That's crazy. You got the 3 minutes 35? The last video, not the last video, but the second to last. This showing these good jobs, good pay. Video 8, good money, no time. This brother making way more money than I am, and ain't got no place to stay. Way more. And I want you to listen to how much he ain't got. No free time, no kind of leisure, nothing. But he's making all kinds of money, but ain't got no place to stay. Play it. Go ahead.
What's good, people? This is Ken Aller right here. I have been sleeping in my car for about a good 17 days. I think it was like October 15th. Yeah, somebody decided to do something crazy. So just last week I worked 84 hours. 84 divided by 7, that's about a good 12 hours a day. So this is the final thing, right? Since I worked 84 hours, I made $1,861.47
per week.
Now, when you divide
per week
84, really, I worked 84 hours and a quarter. 84 hours in about a good, I say 20 minutes. But I just said 84 hours, just make it a little simple. So when you do 84, let's just say 84 and a quarter, right? That's about a good $22.09.
But he's working 12-hour shifts. I did that before.
Working
years
that long,
before. You don't have
is it
no
good money?
time.
$22 for about a good 84 hours. I would say that's genuinely about a good, a good number. $1,900 for 84 hours. I would say that's good. It's not taxable. Now, how much I spent in gas, and I spent $35 every day in gas. So that's $245. This is my take home. $1,616.47. Now, if you want to know how many miles I drove,
not taxable.
Just
Think
in that
about
week.
This.
So the total amount of miles that I drove last week was 1,156.
But I got a place to stay.
Now, is that a lot of miles? Yes. Do you need a reliable car? Yes. How many miles do my car have? My car has 259,000 miles.
Every time it's ready.
It just went away. But during this right here, $1,900 for 84 hours a week, is it good money? I would say so.
I would say so too.
Is it manageable for like the average person? If you keep your bills and your overhead low, right? You keep your overhead low. You wouldn't have to work this many hours all the time. Also, too, so I cherry pick, and I also have multiple apps. So I'm gonna show y'all what I made on each app. So on DoorDash, I made $656.01.
He ain't thinking.
On
He's
Uber
not doing
Eats,
it the
I
way
made
God would want it.
$577.40.
That's not even a
on
life.
Grubhub, I made $306.80. On Instacart, I made $183.29. On Spark, I made $141.97. But like I said, $22 an hour. I would prefer to make $25, but I'm still thankful for even having this opportunity to even make this amount of money in a week. Hey, but this is today's video on this is how much I made in a week homeless.
This brother did not have a father.
I said I'm not encouraging y'all to do it because I don't want y'all
to in our community.
Go through this. I don't want y'all to feel this. I don't want y'all
that video. Yeah.
Right. This is a lack of leadership in our communities because instead of somebody telling this young man, "Hey, bro, look, go get a trade, go study up on a trade, become an apprentice, become an electrician," he's doing.
Right, and don't
Uber
be
Eats.
working no 12-hour
Right.
shift. No, you got to do the work for the Lord too. You can't be just your whole life is work. Whether it's crack addiction, food addiction, sex addiction, or work addiction, there is some such thing as that. Doesn't Sirach 38 talk about that? We ain't gonna read it, but it does. You can read it on your own time. You don't have no life. Your life ain't about your possessions, as Luke says in 12:15. But in the end, this leads to global famine. And we're going to read that. It's about the last scripture. Yeah. 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 19 to 22. 19 to 22.
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16 and verse 19.
Uh-huh.
Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment.
All these horrible things you're seeing where they have good jobs and they can't have a place to stay and they're getting very little sleep. This is supposed to make you say, I have sinned, I have done perversely, let me start keeping the laws of God. That's what it's supposed to, but these people aren't going to repent. Go on.
But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness.
You hear that? They're not going to repent. That's what God is saying. Go on.
Nor be always mindful of their scourges.
They're not going to always be, they're going to think, as long as that money coming in, they're going to think everything's all right. Go on.
Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth.
So far now, but eggs ain't. And what else? The chicken ain't. It's going up just like the eggs. And then the beef. Go on.
That they shall think themselves to be in good case.
They think themselves in good case. But see, if they were looking at these scriptures that we're reading right now, it's all going to go up. Go on.
And even then shall evils grow upon the earth.
Grow, grow, grow. Key word, grow. It's going to go up. It's going to get worse.
Sword, famine, and great confusion.
Uh-huh.
For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine.
Many shall perish by the global famine that's getting ready to come. It hasn't gotten here yet. You're seeing the beginnings. It had full force of a famine. Money will fail. Businesses will fail. Everything will fail. Go on.
And the other that escapeth the hunger shall the sword destroy.
And when people are starving, it's worse than the crack epidemic. People will start killing for food, for a can of Campbell's tomato soup. They will kill you. They will ravish you for a can of Campbell's tomato soup. It will be worse than the crack epidemic. That's what we're trying to tell you. Repent and start keeping these commandments. I'm going to show you what's happening, just the beginnings of the famine. Give me video number 9. Is a timestamp on this one? Oh, man. All right. Yep, 0 to 1:45, 1 minute and 45 seconds. It's just the introduction of it. Because the introduction says everything that's happening right now.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. Stocks plunged, the Dow dropping nearly 900 points after President Trump would not rule out the possibility of a recession. Also tonight, the images of massive fiery collision involving a U.S. tanker. First tonight, the stock market's in a spiral today, the Dow losing nearly 900 points. The NASDAQ suffering its worst day in nearly 3 years after President Trump refused to dismiss the possibility of a recession following his moves on tariffs. And tonight, what Canada's new Prime Minister-elect has now declared. The fiery collision at sea involving a U.S. tanker, flames and black smoke pouring from that tanker, hit by another ship. Both ships.
You think it was an accident? No.
In the U.S.,
not
the explosive plane crash.
How many planes have you heard come down and people dying?
Parking lot. And now
in a 2-3 week span.
And
how many
just
planes?
There's word a medical helicopter
Is it by accident?
has gone
No.
down. There was news coming in tonight of the search for a missing college student on spring break with her friends. In New York City, the aerials late today, the major protest after a former Columbia graduate student who led pro-Palestinian demonstrations at Columbia has now been detained by ICE agents. Tonight, the major blow for the Menendez brothers, what the new DA has now declared in their battle for freedom.
There ain't no
Tonight,
justice.
the new talk set between U.S. officials
There ain't
and
no
Ukraine.
justice for
And the
Edomites. You
message
know
President
damn well there
Zelensky
ain't no
sent to
justice for
President
you.
Trump. James
You
Longman
blacks,
in
Hispanics,
Ukraine
Native
tonight.
American Indians.
Back here in the U.S., the tornado hitting Florida today at
God
EF2
has his way in the
near
whirlwind
Orlando.
and in the
Multiple
storm.
homes damaged or destroyed. Outside New York City, the major wildfires in the Hamptons, and tonight what they're now
Revelation
saying
8 and
about
7.
arson.
1/3 of
Former
the
talk show
earth
host
burned
Wendy
up.
Williams in the news tonight, reportedly throwing a note out her window. Police then
Deuteronomy
responded to a 911
28:28.
call. And country superstar
Madness.
Luke Combs and his very
I don't
personal
care
reveal
about Luke
tonight.
Combs. Damn him. All right, you get it. Everything. That was yesterday. It's going to get worse, y'all. In these scourges for amendment, you better take heed. Start keeping these commandments. And with that, I say shalom, Most High in Christ bless.
Shalom, Most High in Christ bless.
What is a nation? Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is